This recording's already in progress.
Yes. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to wait for a few more folks to join us. Give it another minute before we get started. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. Appreciate it, especially on a Wednesday in August. Okay, great. So, welcome everyone. My name is Victoria Verderam, and I'm the Director of Public Policy and Communications here at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. Very excited to have you join us today. Jean, if you can kick it over to the next slide, we'll introduce Stuart. We're going to do our sponsor remarks first. So we're going to play a video, and then we'll let Nancy speak.
Connecticut is rising. Let's elevate. Let's innovate. The future of work is now, and Connecticut is leading the charge. AI tools are no longer just for tech giants. They're for real work, right here, right now. Small businesses, nonprofits, educators, and emerging talent, this is built for you. Together, we're building a stronger Connecticut workforce. The Connecticut AI Academy, powered by Charter Oak State College.
Okay,
Hi.
Nancy, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Victoria. Really excited to be here today. Charter Oak State College, which is Connecticut's public online college, is really excited to be part of the Tech Council for the Greater New Haven Chamber. It really fits right into exactly what we've been doing over the past year and a half with the Connecticut AI Academy. And as part of the AI Academy, we're developing a number of courses that are going to be available to residents in the state of Connecticut come this fall. And we already have two that are available. If you go to charteroak.edu, go under the AI Academy, and you can take these courses. Stuart, I'm really excited about you being here today. I think the biggest thing that is the most important for how people go about, how small businesses go about implementing AI is this culture change. And so that is one of the most important things that people need to be able to understand. And so I'm really looking forward to this. Again, thank you for doing this. Thank you to the Greater New Haven Chamber and Charter Oak AI Academy. Go there, sign up.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you to Charter Oak State College. You all are such wonderful sponsors and partners, not just to the chamber, of course, but to also our technology council, who is bringing the program to us today. So today we are talking about leading the AI shift, how to build a culture of adoption. And we are very happy to have Stuart Bryan with us today, co-founder and president of IM Technology. So AI has been a very hot topic. We all know we can't seem to escape it. So very happy to have Stuart here today to give us a little more insight. So Stuart, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for the opportunity. So welcome, everyone. Buying an AI tool is easy. Changing how people work is hard. A new platform can create another login, but it does not automatically create a new habit, better judgment, or a more capable organization. Today is about the leadership work that turns access into adoption. So the hard part isn't access. Let's do a quick poll, and obviously you'll have to answer this on your own, but answer for yourself. Where is your organization today? Would you say that you're exploring, but without shared direction? You have individuals in your organization who are experimenting. One or more formal pilots are underway, or we're scaling with governance. And so, number one, no perfect answers. Different departments in your organization may be at different stages. The challenge is that some organizations are still talking about it. Others have people playing around with it, whether leadership is approved formally or not. And then other folks maybe have smaller groups that are doing controlled pilots. But fewer still have reached the point where successful practices are being standardized. And the important question is not whether or not someone has access to AI. It's really truly about whether or not that use is connected to a business outcome where people understand the rules and there's the ability to have the organization be able to measure and tell what is actually working. So we're going to go through 5 practical leadership moves. First is to set the business outcome. And so we're not going to begin with the tool. And the second is to help people understand what AI can do, where it can fail, and what responsible use looks like. And then third, we're going to talk about inviting safe experimentation because people need a controlled way to learn. Fourth, formalize the guardrails so the safe path is also the easy path. And then finally, track what matters. Make course corrections and scale only what has earned the right to scale. So that is the shift framework. I've made this deliberately simple so that people can have something that they can remember after the webinar ends. So hopefully that is helpful. So most AI efforts do not stall because the demonstration was unimpressive. Matter of fact, I get phone calls all the time where someone's like, oh my gosh, had the greatest tool, just showed like this is amazing. Yes, AI is amazing, but that's not the problem. The problem is they stall because the organization never created the conditions for the work to succeed. A tool gets selected before anyone agrees on the problem. A messy process gets automated, which simply makes the confusion move faster. The initiative has supporters, but no accountable owner. There's no directly responsible party or directly responsible individual. Employees hear rumors about replacement before leadership explains the purpose. They go to their favorite fast food joint, Shake Shack, whatever, and they see a kiosk. They think that that is the ultimate goal for the leadership. Training is added to an already full workload. A pilot produces something interesting, but nobody can really say whether it improved the business at all. That is why adoption can't be handed to IT and just treated like a software installation. Technology is part of the answer, but leadership has to define the outcome, ownership, expectations, and acceptable level of risk. People pay more attention to what leadership repeatedly does than what leadership announces once. It's got to be something that is walked out and not just a speech. When executives talk about AI, but then they never attend the trainings, they never use the approved tools. Instead, they're over here doing something else on their own. They've downloaded Claude Cowork and they're experimenting it, but the whole organization is over here on Copilot. If they never ask about the outcomes, the rest of the organization notices this because it's a disconnect and it's obvious. When a pilot doesn't work and the people involved are blamed for bringing back an honest result, experimentation ends because nobody wants to get in trouble at work. Leadership does not mean pretending to have every technical answer. You don't have to be the smart person in the room. But it does mean providing direction, removing ambiguity, protecting time for learning, and making decisions. Waiting for perfect certainty is also a choice. The goal is not to rush. The goal is to be deliberate. And to clarify the perfect certainty perfect absolutely can be the enemy of done and getting started in this case. And I'm not, hear me out, I'm not advocating you wait for everything to be perfect. Before you push adoption, check readiness. Okay, so to yourself, give your organization a quick score from 1 to 5 in each of these areas. All right, strategy. Do we know what we're trying to improve? Data. Do we know where the information comes from, how reliable it is, and whether or not we are permitted to use it? Technology. Do we have approved systems, secure access, and enough stability to support the workflow? People. Have we communicated the purpose, provided training, and created a place for questions? Process. Can we describe how the work happens today? So hopefully you now have scores. Your lowest score is probably where AI adoption will get stuck. Now, a low score does not necessarily mean stop. It tells you where leadership attention is required before broad access is granted. All right, let's get into the shift framework. So, set the business outcome. Use AI in finance is not a business outcome. It's not. Use AI in marketing is not a business outcome. Reduce the time required to prepare the monthly reporting package while maintaining accuracy and review requirements. Okay, well, that's closer. Before you select a platform, define the problem, the owner, the baseline, the measure, i.e., KPIs, the measurements, and the date when you will decide whether to continue. This protects the organization from impressive demonstrations that do not solve the actual problem. See, a vendor can show you what the technology does, but leadership has to decide whether that capability matters to the organization. And it's important that you keep the outcome stable while remaining willing to change the method. I've often said I'm intensely disloyal to vendors and products and intensely loyal to outcomes because my business, my organization, and yours is likely living and dying by the quality of the outcomes that you get. Therefore, outcome is the thing that matters. So you want to be committed to the result without becoming emotionally committed to the first tool or idea. So you're going to want to choose the right place to start. And the most exciting use case is often not always the best first use case. You want to look for work that happens frequently, consumes meaningful staff capacity, creates friction, and can be reviewed by a qualified person. So let's talk about friction for just a minute. Friction often occurs at interdepartmental relationships and interactions, right? It's where a role intersects with another role in another department. They might have to share tools or data. It's those types of places where you'll get organizational friction. That's the kind of friction I'm talking about, but it could also be the place where work stops or slows down in your organization. So what are some common starting points? All right, well, those include manual reporting, recurring summaries, meeting follow-ups, internal knowledge searches, getting first drafts of things, classification of data, and repetitive communication workflows. You're going to look at those, and then you're going to look at 4 factors: impact, effort, risk, and alignment. So think of one task that your team performs every week that is repetitive, information heavy, and easy for a person to review. And if you're willing, put it into the chat. Don't overthink it. The goal is to find a useful starting point, not the final AI strategy for the organization. And so to have the ability to state what that is, we're going to come back to that later. H. Well, AI literacy does not mean turning every employee into a data scientist. It means helping people make good decisions. The finance team, the client service team, marketing team, and technical team do not need identical training. Every group should understand the approved tools, the appropriate use cases, the data boundaries, the review expectations, and escalation path for its work. Training, therefore, should be practical and role-based. Show people a task they recognize. Show them a good use, a poor use, and then a situation where the tool should not be used at all. In other words, make it real, make it practical. Now, AI can be extremely useful, but useful is not the same as infallible. A system can produce an answer that sounds polished and certain while still being wrong. The tone of the output cannot be treated as proof of accuracy. So use AI to accelerate appropriate parts of the work, creating a first draft, summarizing source material, organizing information, or generating options. Then apply the judgment, context, and accountability of a qualified person. The level of review should match the consequence of being wrong. Something that's not that important, cursory glance perhaps. Something that has real financial or reputational type consequences if it's wrong, due diligence is absolutely a requirement. An internal brainstorming list, for example, and a client-facing recommendation, those do not carry the same risk. Brainstorming is brainstorming. It's just you're shooting the breeze, you're thinking about things. Client-facing recommendation that gets reputation and dollars attached to it, choices that might be hard to turn around and backtrack, that's an extremely different conversation. And so this is, I think, a big area of mistake in businesses. People fill a communication vacuum with assumptions. That is especially true when a new technology is associated with job loss, surveillance, or major changes in how work gets done. It's important that leadership is specific about how the workflows are being evaluated and be equally clear about what is not being delegated to AI. You want to avoid vague promises about jobs or roles when the organization has not completed that analysis, because realistically, AI is absolutely going to impact hiring, career paths, the kind of work that gets assigned, how the work gets done, what type of roles people have an opportunity to step into. Even in some cases, and this is in some cases a big challenge, some more junior roles are being eliminated or released a hiring pause because they're unsure of the impact of AI. But here's the thing. Honest uncertainty is more credible than reassurance that may later prove false. And you certainly don't want to have to backtrack and do an apology tour. Employees should know what will remain constant And that should be accountability, client commitments, confidentiality, your organizational values, and the expectation that important work receives appropriate human review. Trust begins with transparency before any rollout, not damage control after anxiety has already spread. Moving on to I, invite safe experimentation. Many leaders delay because they treat every AI decision as permanent. Most early pilots are not one-way doors. They are reversible decisions. If you treat every decision like a one-way door, you will slow down your decisions. You will give too much weight to decisions that should actually be quick tests. A safe experiment has boundaries. It uses an approved system. It limits the data and the number of users. It has a beginning. It has an end. That's important. It has a human review point, and then it should have a decision date. That is not permission to be careless, however. It's a way to learn without exposing the entire organization to the consequences of untested data. And an untested idea that can generate untested data and outcomes. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try it. You're going to want to test it. You're going to want to review the result. And then you're going to want to make a course correction if need be. Sometimes the right decision will be like, that was a bad idea. And so it's going to be to stop it. But a pilot that helps an organization avoid a poor investment still has produced value for your organization. So even a quote failure is actually, it's not necessarily a failure. It's just deciding that doesn't actually seem like that's going to work for us. Great. That choice has been eliminated onto another choice. So it still moves the ball forward. It still is something that adds value. And if something fails, again, super important, the people who are involved in that pilot, they need to be encouraged. They need to be applauded for the efforts in doing that pilot, even if it ends in failure, to encourage them to continue to experiment. So here's the structure for a useful pilot. You want to start with the outcome, and then you want to decide what is inside and also outside the pilot. And you want to name one accountable owner. That way there can be no finger pointing. Instead, it's my decision, my success or failure in this, but I'm the one who's reporting on the results. I own it. You want to identify the users who are involved and then give them actual support. What do I mean by that? I mean, don't provide them a link to a training video. Like, be actively involved in the supporting of the pilot. You want to define the approved tool, the data boundaries, and human review step. You want to measure the process before the pilot begins so that improvement can be demonstrated. It takes us 12 hours to do this. Great, now we know 12 is our number. Or it takes us 3 people do this, and it has 5 different steps that it goes through. Great. And now we know the number of people, we know the number of steps. We've got measurable starting points. For example, let's say a project manager spends 2 hours every Friday compiling a weekly status report. The pilot could allow an approved AI tool to create a first draft from structured project notes. And then the project manager reviews every statement before distribution. Then, what are the measures? Well, they're preparation time, factual corrections, and usefulness to the reader. And then after the 30 days, the decision is simply, well, did people like it? No, that can't be the decision. It's not a matter of like or don't like. Instead, it is, did something measurably improve? And then now the decision is continue, adjust, expand, or stop based on the evidence that you have collected. You're going to want to build an AI champions network. Now, what does that mean? Well, AI champions should be credible, curious, patient, and willing to share what they learn. Now, that can be inside your company or organization. It could also be cross-company. For example, I chair a AI cohort, and we just talk about ideas, and everything is assumed confidential, but we're just ideating, having conversations, talking through things that are stuck and seeing if somebody solved the problem. Here's the thing, though. They are not a substitute for IT, security, legal, HR, compliance, or management. This AI Champions Network, they should not be expected to support every tool or fix every problems, and especially after hours, because they're moonlighting as the AI champion for your organization. You want to give champions approved tools, role-specific training, protected time, like time blocking, this is designated for, access to decision makers, and recognition for helping the organization learn. The larger the larger leadership principle here is that people who increase the value they provide should have a path to increased responsibility and opportunity. So be aware that when you're building your team up, they are likely going to be looked for some sort of vertical career path opportunity or even lateral with a vertical that is going to happen. Why? Because they're adding direct value to your organization. Training cannot be presented as one more unpaid burden. Now, maybe it makes their job easier, and as such, they'll take the training because it makes their job easier. But if it makes their job easier and then you just pile on more work, so they now have the job plus the training, use the AI, and also do more stuff, it's the whole with them, right? What's in it for me? Like, people ask that question. You have to be realistic here. And so instead, this should be part of how the organization develops its people. At my organization, we have a training, an ascension program called Learn to Earn. And if you want to earn money here, you have to learn. You have to add more value. You want to get value from the organization, add more value to the organization. And we have an ascension plan, and we have bounties that are, monies tacked to this and tacked to that and over here with this. And so people have a very definite way of understanding that. We had 2 people, for example. Last week they took and certified on things. This week they make more money than they did last week. Make it so that it is something as a kind of culturally integrated into your organization about how you're developing your people. Reward those who are curious and are engaged in the process. Putting a head in the sand. It's great in cartoons, works well for the ostriches, but it doesn't work in reality, because what you really want to do is you want to have the attitude that resistance is often useful information. Because, see, it tells each of us where the communication, training, workload, or trust gaps live in our organizations. And so don't dismiss a concern as negativity simply because it's uncomfortable. Instead, when someone asks whether AI is replacing them, answer with the facts available today. Tell them what you know now. Explain the specific work being evaluated, what remains human-owned, and what training or support will be provided. And when someone says they do not have enough time, believe them long enough to go in and examine the workload. And to be clear, that means you need to go to where the work is being performed. There's 2 great books by Dan Heath, Reset and Upstream. If you haven't read them, I highly recommend them. They're great leadership books. But one of the core principles is that you need to go where the work is being performed, because oftentimes leadership is shielded from the actual workflows. You have what you think is going on, the day in the life of documents, the job descriptions, and then you get there and you realize, oh, this has been broken and our team has found a workaround. And you don't want that. Nobody does. Adding a pilot without removing or postponing anything is not change management. It's workload inflation, and people are wise to it. So you want to make a clear distinction between careless use and a good faith experiment conducted within the rules. People need to know that asking for help is safer than hiding uncertainty. All right, F. Formalize the guardrails. A useful AI policy should answer the questions employees encounter in the normal course of work. If you've got a 12-page policy that someone has to sign as part of their onboarding and it's in the HR portal and they click it and they do the things, they're not going to remember it. 12 pages? Like, I sometimes read a restaurant menu that has 6 pages and I have to flip back to see what the other thing was on the front page that I missed or that I forgot. It's not going to be any different in your organization. 12 pages is not going to fly. You're going to want to have something that's more simple. Like you might want to have a 12-page policy, sure, but have a 1-pager, something that's a steering document, that quick reference guide that somebody can have. And so what should it contain? Well, it should contain what tools are approved, what data is off limits, which outputs require review, and who should be contacted when something feels wrong. Because sometimes there's no guidance on something, but it just doesn't feel right. Make sure people understand who do they take that concern to. The main guidance should be likely 1 or 2 pages. And then you can have more detailed material for teams with specialized obligations or drive it down to the department level. But the point is that you want to keep it as simple as possible. A policy that's technically complete but is too complicated to use will not guide daily behavior. How many of you have to answer questions, or someone on your team has to answer questions regarding your employee handbook? Everybody read it, everybody signed off on it. Heck, you might have to look in the handbook to answer the question. It's no different here. And so you're going to want to make sure you bring in IT, security, legal, compliance, HR, and operational leaders where appropriate, so they have the opportunity to have a voice for this guiding policy. The purpose of the guardrails is not to eliminate every risk. You can't do so, otherwise you won't move forward. It's to make responsible behavior understandable and repeatable. That's the goal. Governance. Governance without the bureaucracy. Big bullet line at the bottom, make decisions faster. That's actually the goal here. If you're running a small business today, if you're running a small nonprofit today, you're fortunate. You have agility on your side. You can make decisions and pivot faster than the big companies can, less bureaucratic layers. But how do we put in place governance without bureaucracy? Well, governance's primary role, believe it or not, should be to help the organization make better decisions faster. You might say that doesn't seem to make sense. No, it is. See, it should not become a committee where every useful idea goes to wait or die. Every initiative needs a business owner or an initiative owner. IT and security should manage the technical and the data considerations, but they should not be expected to own the business result. You want to maintain one visible list of use cases. And let me just go back for a second, because I went by that too fast. The reason I'm talking about the business owner, I don't mean the business owner like the person who physically owns the business. What I mean is there's some sort of business outcome, because even if you're a nonprofit, you're still a business. Nonprofit, 501c3, that's a tax filing, right? That's a tax choice. That's not that classification is not, are you a business or not? Your AI projects, your pilots, the things you're doing, they should actually be something that is driven with a business outcome in mind. Therefore, someone should own the business of that business. All right. At a minimum, you want to record the owner, the purpose, tool, the data involved, status, metric, and decision date. You're going to track that. A short monthly decision meeting is generally more useful than a large meeting with no decisions. Your goal should be to come out of a meeting without having any leftover decisions. If you can't do that, then you want to get as many decisions done as possible. If you're missing information, you can't make a qualified or safe decision, Then you assign people to do the research and the investigation necessary to find out what's the next step. And then you set a return date and you update the date when this is due. And next month you decide, because now you have all the information. And if you have to review in the meantime, review in the meantime. But the meeting itself is about making the decisions. You want to review what's being proposed, what is active, what has been learned, and very importantly, what should stop. T, track what matters. And yes, I know measure what matters is the more useful and common phrase, but guess what? That doesn't go in the middle of the word shift. So, or at the end rather. So T it is, track what matters. So a login is not proof of adoption. What do I mean by that? Okay, so you've got 30 people in your organization. Everybody gets an invitation to the ChatGPT, the Copilot, the Claude portal, whatever. The tool's installed in their system or they've got access to it. And now they've got a login link and they do it and they log in and great, they've logged in. Okay, great. That doesn't matter. That's not proof of adoption. Checking the number of prompts that have gone through your organization, that is not proof of value. You want to measure whether the workflow improved. You want to compare the result to the baseline we talked about measuring before. You're going to want to look at time, quality, responsiveness, rework, that dirty word, right? Confidence and risk. Adoption should be measured in the intended workflow, not through general activity, because busyness doesn't equal business. They're so close. And if you have to ask why, there's a Y in busyness. There's an I in business. Somebody has to own the business side of it. They've got to be engaged. They've got to know what's the outcome we're driving for. Busyness doesn't matter. 10 employees repeatedly using a tool is different from a team using a proven process to deliver a better result. And frankly, it could be 2 people on the team versus 10 people using the tool at large. You can get a better result if those 2 people have a defined process that they're working through. And as you define your process, you will develop a proven process that works for your organization. And so what you're going to want to do is you want to make sure you choose 3 to 5 useful measures per pilot, rather than creating a dashboard with 20 numbers that nobody reviews. So even if there's 20 possible metrics that could be tracked, pick 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick a short amount, a small amount of them to make sure that you have the opportunity to make it highly visible. So what are your highest impact out of all the things that can be measured? And we're tracking those because it's easier to track a few than it is to focus on a lot of different things. Every measure should have an owner, a review frequency, and a decision that it can inform. So don't confuse with buying more licenses with scaling. And this is important because scaling means the successful process has been documented, the controls are understood, the training can be repeated, and someone remains accountable. You need to capture more than the final successful prompt. You're going to want to document the source information, the workflow, the review step or steps, approval, exception handling, and then the lessons learned. And then, now that's documented, you're going to want to watch for drift because sometimes tools can change, go to a new platform or whatever happens, and then the effectiveness of that tool can get reduced. The outcome can become less reliable. People can start making changes to how they use things. These small deviations can compound as the number of users grow. The earlier the organization notices and corrects them, the less expensive the correction will be. So scale only after the practice is repeatable and the value justifies the added complexity. And just because something works at a low level, at a small level, does not mean it works the same way when you have many people in there. And sometimes it could be that you are on a plan, for example, that doesn't have the right number of tokens or credits, or you're hosted on a platform that only has X amount of hardware resources to give you. And so it works great for a team of 5 and you scale it up to 50. And now it's slow. It's terrible. It's not working right. People hate it. They stop using it. You have to look at the whole process, the whole picture, the whole way it works. Excuse me. Let's talk about the culture maturity roadmap. These stages provide a useful way to think about organizational maturity. Awareness is about understanding. Adoption is about controlled use. Scaling is about repeatability. And innovation is where the organization begins creating new capabilities rather than merely improving existing work. Now, an organization does not always go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It's sometimes in more than one of those stages at once. Marketing may be over here in scaling, but finance is still in awareness. And that's normal. You're going to decide how you're going to roll this out. So this is not the whole company we're talking about. This is your teams will go through these 4 maturity stages. And it's okay for your teams to be at different levels. Don't force every department to move at the same speed. I heard someone say once that every new team member added and every team member removed creates a whole new team dynamic. I mean, think about it in, like, if you follow sports, we've seen like marquee players get added to a football team or a baseball team or a basketball team. That's one of the places that a single change can sometimes have the biggest effect. When you remove somebody, you change the dynamics of your team. When you add somebody, you do the same thing. Your teams themselves have individual dynamics when compared to other teams as well. So bear that in mind. You want to match the pace to the outcome, readiness, data, and risk. So what does your first 30 days look like? Well, here's the thing. Don't leave this webinar with a plan to transform the whole company by next Monday. That's destined to fail. Week 1 is about understanding what is already happening and where the organization is ready or exposed. Week 2, it's about identifying 3 possible use cases and then selecting one that is meaningful and provides a manageable starting point. Week 3, it's about ownership, guardrails, and training. And week 4 is about launching 1 controlled pilot, not 10. And you're like, whoa, like that seems like it's a lot and we can't do this in 30 days. It's fine. It's okay. I'm okay with this. Your pace is what matters, not my pace, not your neighbor's pace, not the competitor's pace. It's something done well will beat something done in haste every time. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do an exercise. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down 4 things. I'd like you to write down 1 problem. I'd like you then to write down 1 owner for that problem. Write down 1 metric that problem could be measured by. And then 1 associated risk for that problem. And I'm going to pause here. Uncomfortable silence alert. I'm going to grab a drink of water.
Mhm.
Are you ready? All right. These 4 answers that you've hopefully just written down are the beginning of a real pilot. That's how it starts. You have to have a starting point. We've just done that. And maybe you didn't do anything, but that's on you. I would encourage you, do it after. Don't delay. Do it while I'm talking on the next slide. But don't do nothing. So there's 5 things to remember. And the goal here is not to make everyone an AI expert. There are people in your organization, they don't care about AI. They don't want to learn it. They never will. They have no interest in it. I was in a meeting this past week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and somebody commented the fact that they're interested in AI, but a younger member of their staff has no interest in it because they figure it's just going to take their job anyway. Okay, that's fatalist. Don't have that attitude either. But understand that not everybody's going to want to be AI curious, actively engaged, and certainly not an expert, and be okay with that. Now, having said that, there may be job requirements that require somebody to use and understand AI. And if that's the case, it's your organization. You need to run it how you see fit that gives your desired outcome for the organization or for the business. So it's what it is. Job responsibilities and job descriptions are just that. Okay. But the goal here is to make responsible AI use the normal. It makes it be the way things are. So you want to make it normal. A clear purpose, trained people, sensible guardrails, and measurable results. You want to share the outcome. Sorry, you want to start with the outcome. You want to build trust through transparency, which means you're going to have to share. You need to give people room to learn at their pace. Somebody might be, Susie could be 10 times faster than Bob. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to get it and somebody isn't. Help people who aren't getting it get it by making it practical to what they do. Put the rules in place before broad access is ever granted. Then test, measure, adjust, and improve. Be committed to the outcome and be willing to change the process without ego. We're a Claude shop. We're a ChatGPT shop. We only use Copilot. That's true today. Sure, fine. But what happens if one of them really accelerates, or one of them absorbs the other, or one of them goes out of business and all your stuff's there? Like we're in a tech war right now. These companies are slogging it out, grabbing lands. They can build data centers, grabbing intellectual property, buying companies as fast as they can. Why? Because they're in a race. They're in an arms race, an AI arms race. And so you can't be loyal to the tool. You have to be committed to the process that gets you the outcome you need. And if the process that gets you the outcome you need is not getting you the process you need, the outcome you need, then you change the process. It's always that outcome that you're really looking for. And process can be the way we do it, can be the tools we use, can be the people we have work in it. So outcome based and no ego. And then lastly, are we going to have an opportunity for questions?
Yes. Yep. Anybody with questions can write them in the chat.
Okay. So before we move into questions, decide what action you will take in the next 7 days. And remember, a decision creates movement. Movement creates information, and then information allows a better next decision. All right, so let's go into questions and discussion. And I went through a lot of material today. And so if you are interested, absolutely free. There's an AI adoption field guide. You can scan the QR code. No obligation whatsoever. There's nothing. It's just information and a way to go through that. And so if you have a question about leadership, training, employee resistance, security, governance, a possible use case, or how to get started, or even and how to get started perhaps without creating an unnecessary disruption, those are all great questions. And so Um, how are we going to do this? Are you going to read the questions out? Because I don't see the questions.
Yeah, I can read the questions out, but I don't have any questions on my end.
So
So if
fine.
anyone has any questions, you can submit them to the chat now.
All right. So let's do this then. Um, while and if questions come in, I'm going to give you a practical scenario. We'll apply the shift framework to it, and then we'll see where the real leadership decisions show up. And if you have a question, I'll interrupt the scenario at any time. No, no point. Like no worries. We don't have to wait till the end. All right. And so, all right. Are you ready? So here we go. A 60-person professional services firm has a recurring problem. Client meeting follow-up takes 30 to 45 minutes per meeting. Recaps and action items vary by employee. CRM notes are often delayed or incomplete. Some employees are already testing public AI tools. Leadership wants faster follow-up without sacrificing accuracy or confidentiality. So the question is, this is our workflow. Where should leadership start? Okay, let's apply the shift framework. So we're going to start with S, set. We're going to define the outcome in the process, in the promise. And so we have measured it, and we've now decided that we would like to reduce first draft preparation time by 40%. We want to deliver a reviewed recap within 1 business day. We want to maintain accuracy and client service standards. And we want to improve consistency in CRM documentation. That's our set. That's how we're going to define measurements, right? We're setting the outcome. So let's move on to H, which is help. Now we have to do a message to employees. So our message is going to be AI may prepare the first draft, but a qualified person is going to verify it, approve it, and send it. And it's going to only come through, only been done in a approved business account. There's going to be no autonomous client communication. And then we're going to offer you role-based training and make sure that you have the ability to interact, to ask questions. So it's not just here's the link, get after it. And we're going to protect time on your calendar for the pilot. And then we're going to design a safe 30-day pilot. So we have our pilot team, the approved workflow, human review, client follow-up. And here's our design. We're going to have 5 representative client service employees, 1 approved business AI platform, 1 defined meeting and follow-up workflow, standard input and recap templates designed by us and given to the AI so it can know how to format the data, role-based training before launch, and then a weekly 15-minute pilot debrief. The guardrails that are in place only use approved information. Maybe we don't do the full set of client information. Maybe we just do a subset of data so we can play around with 5 data fields versus 50. We do not use personal AI accounts. Need to have custody of the data. We review every name, date, commitment, and action item. And we do not send AI output directly to a client. We escalate uncertain or inappropriate output to make sure that we get that corrected in the model. Now, we're going to commit to pausing the pilot whenever restricted information enters into the pilot, or an unreviewed output is sent, or material errors repeatedly escape review. In other words, when our guardrails are failing, we have a problem, pause it, we'll identify where the failures are, correct those failures if possible, and then continue. And if we can't correct the failures because there's something endemic to what we're actually doing that's not going to work, we stop it. And then here's our illustrative 30-day results. Previously, we measured the prep time, same-day follow-up review, drafts requiring corrections, confirmed data incidents, and employee confidence. And this is not real data. This is just illustrative. Previously, it was 42 minutes for prep time. Now it's 24. It's great. Almost a double, half the time being taken. Same-day review follow-up, right? 54 before, we've improved it to 86 drafts requiring material correction. Before we weren't even tracking that, but now we are, and it's 8%. And it's okay if something wasn't tracked before because we didn't know, but it's okay. We know now. Confirmed data incidents not tracked. Pilot result 0. Employee confidence roughly 2.5 out of 5, moved from 4 out of 5. And so the question is, what should leadership do at this point? Continue, adjust, expand, or stop? And the decision really is adjust and continue before expanding, because you want to replicate successes, not just experiments. So find the bright spots, find out what's really working, tweak it, improve it, and then move that forward. And so my encouragement to you is to lead the shift deliberately. Start with one problem, one accountable owner, one small team, one measurable result. Learn, adjust, and repeat. Thanks.
Thank you, Stuart. I don't see. Oh, wait, here's something in the Q&A. How can we start implementing AI with a limited budget while also protecting our donors' data?
If you have a limited budget, number one, you'd have to decide. I guess limited budget is relative depending on the size of the organization. I would look for opportunities where there's a clear return on investment, where I can save time and time equals money, or I can go do something like if I'm a nonprofit, I might want to dedicate that towards something that is allowing somebody else to have more time to do development work or get more services done. And so I'm going to be probably more intentional about the kind of pilots that I look for ways that can either save payroll time, and I'm not saying eliminate somebody, but save payroll time to move somebody onto a higher value task that gives more to the organization than maybe data comparison between spreadsheets or something like that, or parsing a PDF and having to enter it some other place. So any data duplication, get rid of that as fast as possible. And then as far as the cost of things, if you're a Microsoft shop, Microsoft has their donation platform in place. You can use that to leverage 365 at a significant discount. Plus, you can use Copilot. And then if you're on Google Workspace, you've got Gemini, and that's built in there too. So both of those are pretty easily included into platforms that you probably already use today. And that would be a safe place to start as long as you're using the paid business versions of each.
Thank you, Stuart. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. But of course, if you have any additional questions, his contact information is here on the last slide. You can also reach out to us at the chamber and we can connect you as well. Just want to take a moment and thank everyone for attending today and taking time out of your busy August Wednesday to join us this afternoon. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.